Have you ever been in the right place at just the right time? A few years back, I was part of the team helping with the disaster relief up in North Queensland, just after Cyclone Debbie had torn through the place. I was in Woolworths and I was just about finished going through the checkout when a family came and stood behind me in line. I had this really overwhelming sense that I was to pay for their groceries. I kind of just shook it off a little bit and thought, no, that's a bit silly, and continued on, paid for my own groceries, and was leaving the shop when that sense became even stronger. Pay for their groceries. I kind of kept walking towards the car park when I really stopped in my tracks, as it almost became like a clanging bell in my head. Pay for their groceries. I said to the lady that was with me, I think God is telling me to go back and pay for the groceries of the people behind us. And she just said, okay, let's do it. So I turned around, and even though I felt a little bit silly, I walked back and I said to them, I'm going to pay for your groceries. Now, at first the dad was, no, you don't have to do that. And I said to him, no, I really feel like God is telling me to pay for your groceries. Well, the mum started crying and even the dad teared up. And he said, we've lost everything in the cyclone. We've been evacuated. We can't return back to our home. We're sort of sleeping on couches and lounge room floors of friends. And today is our son's 4th birthday. But we couldn't afford a cake or a present. And I said to him, well, I'm paying for your groceries today. Hopefully that helps even just in the smallest amount. Well, the little boy said, does that mean I can get a birthday cake? And his mum said, yes, you can get a birthday cake now. And the little boy turned to me and said, will you come over and have some of my birthday cake? I can't tell you, I wish I could express the joy that filled my heart being in the right place at the right time and being obedient to what God was asking me to do. Now, if you're not familiar with it, Esther is a fascinating story found in the Old Testament, just after the story of Nehemiah. It's easily able to be read in one sitting. So go and get your Bible and open up in the Old Testament to the book of Esther and read it from beginning to end. Interestingly, Esther is also the only Old Testament book that makes no mention of God, but it's the story of how God used one woman to save the remnant of Jews that lived in her area. Now, Esther's parents had died when she was young, and she was adopted by her uncle Mordecai. As it would happen, the current king gets rid of his wife, and so begins the search for a new queen. Beautiful young women are brought in from the whole country to see if one might be the new queen. Now, the person in charge of these women meets Esther and shows her favour. And for a year, each girl is pampered with special perfumes and food in preparation for the time to meet the king. Ultimately, Esther is chosen from amongst the girls to become queen. And that's when the real drama begins. Haman, one of the king's trusted advisors, decides to have all the Jews in the kingdom murdered on a certain day, and the king agrees. Now Mordecai goes to Esther and pleads with her to intercede on behalf of her people, the Jews. Now Esther's challenge is twofold. First, Esther has never told anyone she was a Jew, and so to advocate for them is to out herself as someone the king has ordered to kill. Secondly, the king has not called for her in 30 days, and so to enter his presence without an invitation also risked death. Mordecai then says these words of Esther in chapter 4, verse 14. For if you remain silent at this time, relief and deliverance for the Jews will arise from another place, but you and your father's family will perish. And who knows but that you have come to royal position for such a time as this? The story of Esther continues, with Esther developing a plan that would expose Haman, save the Jews, and earn her place in history. Being in the right place at the right time. I wonder what stories you can tell of your own life where you have been in the right place at the right time. Maybe you've had opportunities like I just told you about. But you know, there have also been times when I have not done the thing I felt I was supposed to. I've ignored that small voice inside me. Maybe you know what I'm talking about. When you've been in a situation where you have felt prompted to stand up or step in. Who knows, but you have come to this place for such a time as this. If you were to look at your current life situation and apply that thinking to it, how would it change your thinking? What would you do differently? You have come to this place for such a time as this. God's planning is never random. His purpose for you and your life was set in place before you were born. We're reminded in Ephesians 1 verse 4, for he chose us in him before the creation of the world, to be holy and blameless in his sight. God created you for such a time as this, and he has a plan for you. Don't waste a minute. Once you think that, you know that, and you believe it, it will change how you think and how you behave. You have come to this place for such a time as this. It is not random where you are at this point. How exciting. I wonder what it is God is asking you to do today. God bless you each.
Hi everyone, my name is Joan Llewellyn. Where am I from? Originally from Northern Ireland, and I've lived in Australia for nearly 50 years. I came in 1972. And I've done different jobs, etc., been to different churches in that time, and I've been involved with the Salvation Army probably in the 2000s. I finished working in 2010 for the Salvation Army, so probably late 90s, early 2000s. Well, my parents always took me to church, and I went to Sunday school from a very early age in Ireland. I got to 19, however, and my friend Daphne, she said to me, Joan, I don't think you're a Christian. And I thought, well, that's a bit rude to say that to me. You know, here was I going to church all those years. Anyway, I went to the Church of Ireland in Ireland, which wasn't really the gospel. I don't think I really had ever heard it. So Daphne said, come to the Baptist church with me. So off I went. And yes, I realized that I did believe in God, but I don't think I even realized I was a sinner at that point, I didn't realize I had to do anything about it. I believed in God, and that was good. But I needed to realize at that point that I had done things wrong in my life, and still do, we still continue. But I realized that Jesus had died, and realized that in order to have a relationship with God, a real relationship, I had to apologize. I had to say, look, I'm sorry that I realize that I do things wrong. I'm a sinner, and I can't move on from there until I acknowledge that Jesus had died to help me get through that. And that's when I realized, that I wasn't a Christian. She was right. And from that point on, I looked at life from a different point of view. Well, I think most likely is prayer and realizing that Jesus is with me all the time. I love Psalm 139 where it says that, God knows when you sit down, when you get up, which can be a bit worrying as well. But I take sort of the more encouraging side of that God knows all about me, loves me the way I am, and that, that I can pray and talk to him. And so many times, millions of times, God has answered prayer for me over the years. I'm really a bit of a wimp when it comes to worrying about things. I don't appear to be a worrying person, but I do worry about things, and I'm always going to God about stuff. And he has constantly been there and answered my prayer, and he's so faithful and loving, and just there all the time, and I think that's wonderful to know that. Well, I think, you look at the world and it can be pretty scary out there. And I think faith is very important to realize that life's very temporary. I'll be 70 this year, and I'm not sure where that time has all gone to, but I realize, and as you get older, you realize how short life is, that this is only a temporary situation. It's not the final outcome as such. I realize that, I'll go and be with Jesus one day, and the Bible does talk about the fact that God has put eternity in the hearts of men, that this is only a temporary life, and therefore faith is really important to realize there's something more out there that's more important. You can get taken up with all the stuff here. Okay, it's lovely to have a good job, to get married, have kids, have grandchildren, and have money to spend, all that stuff, but it's not the be-all and end-all. It's sort of, there's something much more important than that, and faith is the thing that's more important than that. Yes, I do feel faith is important because there's nothing else in this world that can satisfy except for faith. We were born in order to have a relationship with God. That's the purpose of life, I do believe. And to have that relationship with God, to have that faith means there's something more concrete in your life. Life is pretty wishy-washy. Things go wrong in life. God allows stuff to go wrong so that we can put our trust in him and helps us to realize that, that wasn't so important, that thing. Faith is more important, to trust in, what God has already worked out for all of us. He's already worked out our lives anyway. He knows that, and Psalm 139 says that as well, that we all have a certain number of days, and God knows all about those from the beginning to the end. And I believe that he, ordains the things we do, that he's with us in all of it. He teaches us things, and that we go to be with him at the end of it all. Yes, I think that, I turn to God and ask him, you just got to trust, I suppose. They say that faith is believing, that even though you can't see the reason for something. I think when you look back, quite often you can see the reason. And when you're going through the thing, yes, it's very hard. And I often ask a lot of people to pray. I've learned to not stress quite as much as I did when I was younger. I know that God does answer prayer. I can look back and see how he has done. And that's something that's important to me. The fact that I know that he hears me, and he has answered prayer in the past. Reminds me of the Israelites, that things kept going wrong for them, but they could look back, and God told them to look back. And you can't see the thing at the time, but in hindsight, you can look back and see how God has answered. And I think you call on those times when you're going through something difficult. You have to say to yourself, right, God knew about that last time. I got through that thing. This is more difficult maybe, but I know he heard me when I talked to him last time about it. And he's a faithful God, and we can turn to him in those times. I know that because it worked out last time, it might work out differently this time, but at the same time, God knows about it, and he hears you, and he knows what's going on, and he allows things to happen in your life. Well, we're doing 2 Peter at the moment in our church sermons, and we've only just started doing it. And the beginning, it talks about how the fact that God's divine power is the thing that changes us, and it's his divine power that does everything, really. And then it goes on to say what our part is in that situation, that we need to ask God to change us. We need to be aware of the things that are wrong in our life and ask God to change us. And that's something that I need prayer with, because I'm very scatty. I sort of go forward a bit and then I do that same thing wrong again. I think maybe we all do, but I really need God's help to, help me to overcome certain things in my life. Like, it's easy to be selfish. We're all selfish in different ways, but sometimes I just don't move forward the way I'd like to. So I'd like, to really be talking to God about changing me so that I become more like Jesus. He's promised that we will. And sometimes I think, I'm not sure about this. It doesn't seem to be making much difference. So, to be really sort of sincere about that and ask God to change me and make me more aware of Him, and to remember that, yes, eternity is important, and that's what I should be looking at. I've got this little 3 lines here that Corrie ten Boom said. Now, Corrie ten Boom she got arrested by the Germans in the Second World War because she was sheltering the Jewish people, and she said this little thing: if you look at the world, you'll be distressed. If you look at yourself, you'll be depressed. If you look at God, though, you'll be at rest. And I need to remember to do that. It's easy to get taken up with all the stuff, isn't it? I think. I can go through the day and forget, pray in the morning and forget for the rest of the day. So I need to be aware of, the fact that Jesus is there and He can change me and He can help me.